Unfortunately, over time, the organization has lost those values. And today the situation is clear. I think that for more than a decade, the sister republics of Mali and Niger have been at war against terrorism. And in Burkina, it's been nearly a decade that we have been at war. This organization, which was supposed to create mutual aid and solidarity, we have never received any help from this organization. No soldiers, no logistics, no compassion.
Mr. President, we feel like saying we understand that lately the relations have been particularly difficult. That with what has happened, the coup d'etat that have occurred in these different states you just mentioned, Mali, Niger and Burkina, you might want to leave. And people are saying, isn't this a reaction to the fact that they don't accept that you allowed coup d'etat, that you are leaving and saying to yourself, well, since they don't accept it, we're leaving?
Coup d'etat are not done because we want them. It's this way of seeing things that needs to change. You agree with me that having these states in crisis to carry out a coup d'etat and take responsibility is very burdensome. But if we do it, it's because we have a desire to lead our people towards a certain sovereignty, because we know the origin of this crisis. And I think we should be supported. People are proud to cite that there are so many millions of displaced people in those regions. But what are you doing to help them? Nothing.
Do you feel that the military is more likely to solve these problems than politicians, civilians? Is that your feeling?
Anyone could do it.
But how do you explain that it's the military who are taking charge and saying we don't want civilians anymore?
No, the military didn't say we don't want civilians anymore. It's out of a sense of patriotism. When the nation is in peril, at some point, important decisions must be made. If it happens that it was the military who had the courage to make this decision, well, that's how it is. In any case, whether civilians or military, we are all children of this country. And anyone who is driven by this feeling of being able to liberate their country could do it. So, it's not a question of being military. Elsewhere, the military has succeeded. And here too, the military can indeed succeed.
So, Mr. President, what do you say to the ECOWAS leaders who say they are leaving because we said we don't want coup leaders among us?
There are many coup leaders among them. So it's not a question of coup leaders, it's just a facade.
When you say coup leaders, do you mean civilian coup leaders?
There are military coup leaders within ECOWAS who today claim to be Democrats. And there are civilians too. There are worse than coup leaders. There are those who kill, who silence.
It's over now?
Yes. First you say the texts say, but they themselves have never respected their texts. It depends on who you are dealing with. That's what we have noticed. The sanctions imposed on Niger, they don't exist anywhere in the texts. So the first ones to violate these texts are these so-called Democrats. We are leaving, but we remain Pan-African. Anyone in Africa, an African who wants to come to Burkina, is welcome in their home, in principle.
But in the opposite direction, it's going to be complicated. Someone who is within the AES, we will talk about the AES in a moment. Someone who is within the AES, we can tell them they can no longer go to Burkina, they can no longer go to Côte d'Ivoire, they can no longer go to Ghana. It becomes a bit more complicated for those who do their business there.
We will see, and we will know what measures to take at an appropriate time.
Is this departure from ECOWAS well thought out, Mr. President?
Of course, very well thought out.
It's not a whim. It's not out of anger.
If it were out of anger, we would have done it a long time ago. I think we took the time to analyze the situation, to weigh many things, and finally, to decide. So, if it were a whim from the very first moments of certain sanctions, the people have been quite resilient, it must be said. They have suffered. So, during that time, we could have decided in anger. Now, we have taken the time to observe, to analyze the situation, and to convince ourselves of our strengths before deciding.
And you took everyone by surprise. Another element in this, let's say, this new way of shaping West Africa, the AES, the Alliance of Sahel States. Mr. President, is the AES viable? On paper, it's very, very appealing, but is it viable?
You know very well that it is more than viable. You know, for a long time, our people have been kept in a certain philosophy, always making us believe that we can't do anything without others. Today, our mission is to awaken consciousness. You are doing it very well, by the way.
Yes.
I appreciate it a lot. We need to awaken consciousness for the youth to realize what they have at home. An organization like this, you first need to realize its strengths, weigh its weaknesses, and after this analysis, you decide. The AES is very viable. Whether in terms of
the economies, Mr. President, if I may, these are economies that are very integrated. You produce the same thing, you do exactly the same thing. Who will sell to whom? How is it going to trade? And what do we do about the fact that these are not countries with at least an opening to the sea?
Numbers are one thing. The economy too. You know, we have been here for a very short time. But the economy has been, I would say, somewhat torn apart by past regimes. Otherwise, we should have very strong economies today. That's what I say when analyzing our strengths. We realize that we shouldn't be at this stage. We should be much further along. When you consider the AES in terms of population, in terms of area, we are doing very well. In terms of production, normally the AES states should not import anything regarding agricultural products, the food. Today we are aware of this and we are doing everything to ensure that we do not import anything regarding what we consume. In terms of wealth, whether natural, when I say natural wealth, there are underground resources, but there are also those on the surface. Everywhere, we hear that Africans are dying of hunger, thirst, and so on. Projects invented here and there, for example, to provide us with drinking water. The AES is a large reserve of underground and even surface water. In terms of mineral resources, we have nothing to envy from anyone. And in nature, when you take products like, I like to say, shea butter is a natural wealth. We did not plant it. It is God who gave it, but it is very rich. People take it and transform it, so we are aware of our potential. The AES has nothing to envy from anyone. For you, the AES can be self-sufficient, an integrated system that functions normally. Perfectly?
Mr. President, when we look at the approach that has just been undertaken by these 3 states, very concretely, we hear everywhere that there is a need for them to be working with others on a subject that is the most important today, or security. I want to ask, Mr. President, today you have been here for some time already. It's been more than a year. What is your assessment in the field of security? Before we talk about these 3 states, and in terms of security, in your case in Burkina Faso, a good part of the territory is still in the hands of terrorists. What have you been able to do since you've been here in that area?
Very well. It is actually the priority for me. As you said, these terrorists kill, burn, displace populations, and seize lands. But I can tell you right now, as I mentioned recently, there is no part of the territory where we want to go and cannot go.
Today you can go across the entire territory?
Everywhere. The territories that were under control, if we can say so, for 2, 3, 4 years, we are setting foot there.
Yet there is talk of more attacks than before, when there were foreign armies on the territory.
Yes. Are you sure? More attacks, that's relative. Today we are on the offensive in most areas. We are no longer in a defensive posture. We are going towards the enemy, we are seeking the enemy. When we decided to take our destiny into our own hands, as they say, it's quite an important and very courageous decision. And when you decide like that, all the sleeper cells wake up at once. And that's when you realize the magnitude of the terrorism situation. We realized it well. But to wage war, there is first patriotism, there is logistics, there is now. It wouldn't have been possible a few years ago.
Why?
You have to know how to awaken patriotism in each people. Make them confident, knowing that their homeland is the only thing they have left. We managed to do that. That's why when we ask them to contribute, they do it. We ask people to enlist to fight for their position. Even today, if we decide that we want 1 million Burkinabe to fight the others.
Volunteer.
Defend homeland.
Defense of homeland.
Yes. People are ready. They are committed.
Isn't it dangerous for them?
No, it's their homeland.
It's their homeland.
All over the world, people have fought for their homeland. And why?
Mr. President, when we say that, one tends to ask the question, this terrorism has been ongoing for a while in our territories, with armies that have come and extraordinary sums spent, with high-quality military arsenal so far. How do you explain that suddenly? You decide that the three of you will fight this without the others. Is it realistic? What makes it more feasible today than with those armies that were there?
It's more than realistic. There have been several situations. We have had the opportunity to be on the ground. Many other officers you might encounter have had the chance to be on the ground and have maneuvered with these foreign armies. On your own territory, you are given restrictions. They do whatever they want. What's even more surprising, imagine you said with all the technology they had, they might currently have satellites observing everything. They had drones, helicopters, all types of devices. But we never saw the terrorists. Today we have decided to wage war. But do you realize? We find them every day, and we whip them. So there is a problem.
For you, there wasn't a real willingness to fight them then?
No willingness to fight them?
Okay.
If they wanted to, they could do it. The terrorists would never have reached this level.
So today we say, if they are achieving results, if they are making some progress, it's because they have the Russians with them. There was Wagner, which we talked about. Today we even have the Russians who are going to open their first military base with Africa Corps. Mr. President, are the Russians helping you? And is their help better than that of the foreign armies that were present until now?
You know, as far as Burkina is concerned, for example, we have always been in contact with Russia. And I tell you, the equipment that the Burkinabe had, 80% of it was Russian equipment.
Oh, really?
Of course.
But yet you had a stronger military relationship with the French. How do you explain that?
Yes, because this equipment dates back to perhaps the years of the revolution. Of course, we have equipment dating back to the years of the revolution, which are still in use, Russian and Korean, North Korean equipment, which are still fighting in our army.
And are they more effective?
The army was neglected, don't forget that. Since the 1990s, with the so-called structural adjustment program, everything has been distorted. There were soldiers standing guard with sticks. We disarmed the army, our armies. It was well prepared. No more equipment, no more training, nothing. People were just wearing the uniform, and terrorism joined the dance a few years later. And it's broadcasted on all the media. They are unable to fight. We will come to help them. And terrorism is only gaining ground. Today with Russia, the relationship is primarily strategic. That I think you understand much better than we do. And with Russia, there isn't this equipment that we wish to pay for with them, that they don't sell. The others impose restrictions on us.
They tell you you cannot buy this type of weapon.
Of course.
Yet the Russians sell you everything you want.
Everything we want. Up to the moment I'm speaking to you, we are being blocked from licenses for certain aircraft. There are types of weapons they will never sell us.
And how do they explain these restrictions to you?
You know, I asked the question, where is the friendship? What do they want? There are many countries, the Russians, the Chinese, the Turks, the Koreans, and so on. There are no restrictions. With Iran, everything we want, they will accommodate us. If we can pay, we pay. But with these states that were supposedly our friends, there are restrictions. There are even some who have told us that they can't sell us anything lethal.
Oh, really? So you're at war and you can't kill the one in front of you?
Yes, the terrorist kills us. But we might have the duty to pick up stones. Maybe even the stone is lethal. Anything lethal they won't sell to us. That's their principle.
So today with Russia, What are they getting in return? We know well that there is no friendship between states. It's always about interests. Everyone comes for their own interests. So today, there is a fear among some people that we've just swapped one master for another. However, I know you a little bit to know that you are not about replacing one master with another. What are you giving the Russians very concretely for them to be there? Are they taking minerals? How are you paying them? Are you selling a portion of the territory? What's the deal?
If the deal was really to leave one master for another, we would rather die. Because when we say the homeland or death, it has its full meaning. No, it's just media. Lies again. And unfortunately, we even saw heads of state who fell for it, who went on to spread lies.